Okay, so welcome everyone. So we have another David J. Anderson School of Management webinar. Today presenting is Anna Radzikowska. And so Anna, whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much, Lauren. I'm ready. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I saw at least one person from Australia, New Zealand, which is always, a great experience because there are people who are willing to stay so long. And hello, America. Good morning, America. As I mentioned before we started recording, this webinar, with this webinar, we come back to the basics, not super basics, but the level will be somewhere between a beginner and intermediate. And we are going to talk about delivery and how we can deliver, and that fast delivery is not always the most desirable one. And today's webinar will be a bit different than my usual webinars because it will be case study, not the whole complex case study as I normally present, but part of this case study based on my experience with one of the delivery teams, with which I created a totally new product for the finance department. And using this example, I'm going to show you a few concepts from the Kanban method, of course, that I hope will be useful for you in your planning work specifically. So maybe just starting from the very beginning, it was more than 3 years ago already when I was asked to start a new project. So we just had a budget, we had a tool, it was a super new, super fancy tool bought by our company, and no one has ever used it before. So we were like, guinea pigs to start using it and to apply it in the finance department. So it was rather basic stuff. They did a lot of manual work, which was based on copy pasting one Excel file to another Excel file, or just retyping things from PDF to Excel files. And we're asked to automate this work because there was no value added in this type of working, and we just bought this, awesome new tool to automate the work. We had some timeline for this, more or less 1.5 to 2 years to implement this tool in the finance department. And we had very high level requirements. So we're just told, guys, there are 15 reports that we do manually, and we want you to automate it. Yeah? And we as a development team and testing team, so let's call us delivery, we're a group of totally new people, not working previously together. And so what we had to do, first of all, we had to establish the whole project and how we are going to create this product, but also we had to create some kind of chemistry between all of us. And just 2 words about the company itself. It is still one of the oldest companies in the US. In 2018, there was a huge anniversary of 200 years when this company was in the market. And you can imagine that it's very conservative, not only due to its heritage and history, but also due to the specific environment, very regulated because it was the bank. So we had to deal with this regulated environment. We had to deal with conservative environment, but agile is and was back then very fancy, and everyone wants to be agile. So although all of the projects were done in like the very hard waterfall way, we're asked to use agile for this project. So we started to prepare, and when we created the initial documentation, I was asked, Anya, could you please prepare the Gantt chart? And I was a bit confused because why do we actually need the Gantt chart in this kind of the project? We have 2 years time horizon. We actually have no big clue what we are going to do. We just know that we have 15 reports, we need to automate them, but how we are going to do it, what we are going to do, and what are the precise requirements, no idea. But Anya, you have to prepare the Gantt chart. So after a few discussions and stakeholders meetings, I gave up. I said, okay, never mind. I will do this Gantt chart. So of course, I opened the Excel file. I prepared a beautiful, colorful Gantt chart with all delivery dates for another 2 years, although I had no idea what we are going to deliver and when. And let's do it, let it go. And everything would be fine if not the blockers. So I guess that this project was not very different from many other projects that you are dealing with. So from the moment when we actually started to deliver, we met a lot of blockers. They were mostly related to the fact that no one in the organization really knew this product that we are going to use to automate these reports. And our infrastructure was not ready for it. So we realized that actually we are not able to deliver. And time flies and we are not able to deliver. Every 2 weeks, I had a meeting with our stakeholders. I presented the Gantt chart with delivery dates, and everyone realized that we are not able to deliver by this date. But we all lived in, this dreamy world where we deliver by the date over the next 2 years. So for us, this situation was a punctuation point, maybe not like one punctuation point when you are a dinosaur and the comet hits your planet. No, for us, this punctuation point was extended in time, but it changed the perception. And we, as the team members, as the delivery crew, we had to ask not only ourselves, but also our stakeholders, what can we do about it? So this was also the moment when our group started to work more together, collaborate more, and take this act of leadership, asking what can we do about the situation. So this was kind of a merging system, because although we decided at the beginning that we are going to use Kanban for it, I think that we're not pretty sure what we are going to do and how Kanban is able to help us. Actually, it was kind of a blind shot, but very successful in that sense that the way how we use Kanban to operate and how we used Kanban to operate in this environment helped us to survive. And we didn't deliver for 7 months. From the moment when we started this project till the first delivery, 7 months passed. And over the 7 months, every 2 weeks, I had meetings with stakeholders showing them this Gantt chart. And very soon, all of us realized that this Gantt chart doesn't make any sense in this particular situation. And although everyone knew that we don't deliver, I had to progress. I had to report the progress, but there was no progress. So now what can we do about it? So first of all, we focused on removing blockers and moving the waiting items. And it had to be done, of course, with the support from our stakeholders, from C-level managers, because on our team level, we were not able to do anything about it. But how it affected our process? We very quickly learned how to defer commitment. I don't want you to learn how to defer commitment in such circumstances, but we had to do it. So why do we even talk about deferring commitment? Maybe you have heard this sentence, never commit early unless you know why. It comes from one of the articles from Chris Matz and Olaf Massen. This is the article about real options in Agile, in Kanban specifically. And it tells you that you shouldn't commit too early. And instead of giving you the theory behind deferred commitments, I will come back to this example. So we started the project. I committed to the next 2 years in Excel file because it's very easy to commit in Excel file. So I committed to every single delivery date in this Excel file. And actually, I committed not only to the dates, but also to the scope, which I didn't know. I just thought that maybe we will deliver something. And it was just for the sake of our stakeholders. It didn't make any sense. This commitment was done too early. And how Kanban helped me, but not only me, all of us realize what it means to defer commitment and how we can really defer commitment. So now a bit like 2 minutes of theory. This is something what you maybe recall from the class or maybe from your own reading, that in Kanban we have two commitment points. The first commitment point, this is this red line, and this is the moment when an item moves from upstream Kanban to downstream Kanban. So it crosses this red line. So when item is in the upstream Kanban, it is an option. So this is something what you can still discard. When an item moves over this red line, so moves from ideas from upstream Kanban to downstream Kanban to delivery system, we say that this is the first commitment point. And what does it mean? That two sides of the project, upstream side of the process, sorry, and the downstream side of the process, they both commit and they both agree that on one hand, we as customer know what we want you to deliver for us, and we know that we are not going to change our minds. On the other hand, delivery side of the process says that we as delivery understand your requirements. We know that we are able to deliver it, that it's technically feasible to deliver it, and we are not going to abort your item after we start work on it. So this is very important about commitment in the Kanban, that it's two-side commitment. Not only delivery commits to delivery, but also upstream. So the customer commits to the scope of work. And usually this commitment happens on, as we call it, replenishment meeting, when we replenish this development ready, in this particular case, column, with new items from the ideas. And this is the moment when we commit to what we are going to work on. The second commitment point is somewhere closer to the end of the process. In this particular case, it's in the testing phase. So an item went through testing to the UAT. We have user acceptance testing. And during the user acceptance testing, we already know that actually there are no defects. It looks good. We can take this item, we can deliver this item. So this is the moment when we commit to when. So here we committed to what we are going to deliver, and here we commit to when we are going to deliver it. So what happens very often is that even when we are at the beginning of the process, we already start to fill in our Gantt charts. We start to provide delivery date. We start to provide deployment date. And this is also one of the traps I fall in, and which I'm not very proud about, but it was part of my learning process. No, here we don't yet commit to the date. We just commit to, let's call it the scope. Here we commit to the date, the second commitment point, because we know that rather nothing is going to happen. So this is deferring commitments, not only deferring the decision what we are going to deliver, but also deferring decision when we are going to deliver it. And this is also how we established our process after this 7 months of fighting. That on one hand, we stopped telling our business that guys will deliver this in 2 months on this particular Saturday at 2 p.m. No, we just said that, guys, we start working on it because you requested it. We understand the requirements, you approved the requirements, we all know what we are going to do. And then when we did the testing, we started discussing when will be the deployment date. For us, it was also difficult, not only because we had so many unusual circumstances at the beginning, but also in our organization, there was a deployment calendar. So we couldn't just deploy. We had a deployment window every second Saturday. And if we missed this deployment window, then we had to wait another 2 weeks. So there was kind of a natural cadence of delivery for us. What it changed, that we stopped doing the Gantt charts. We just started to discuss with the business delivery dates based on the lead time, but I will talk about it in a minute. It helped us to stabilize the process around these two commitment points because we had the clear understanding where we are, what we are going to do next, what we are going to work on next, and when we need to commit to the delivery date. And the way how we planned the work was very transparent to stakeholders. Everyone, not only the business, our immediate customers, but everyone involved in this process, also infrastructure teams, also our PMO department, also the testing teams. And this work planning, again, happened around these two commitment points. So when we started working on the new report, it was in the upstream system when we defined the requirements, when we discussed with the business what they really want and what they actually really need. Then we had the process of replenishment of our delivery queue. So they knew what will be the next work we are going to start. Then we did the delivery process. And then when we did the testing, which they were also involved in, we could altogether decide on delivery date. This is the question that each and every stakeholder always asks. Okay, we have two commitment points, but when it will be done? And not only in our project, not only our process, it's, this is the question that comes back over and over again, even during the classes that I deliver right now. When we talk about the commitment points, when we talk about replenishment, people come and say, okay, but I cannot just go to my stakeholders and say, now we are starting work on it, and it will come when it's done. Okay, don't worry about it. No, your stakeholders, your customers, they want to know when it will be done. And for that, we use information about our lead time. So now we are here in the first commitment point. We have our replenishment meeting. We decided, okay, this is the report that we are going to deliver next. And stakeholders ask, okay, and when it will be done. And for this, we use the lead time distribution. So this is just an example of the lead time distribution. So we show the frequency on the y-axis, and on the x-axis, we show the lead time. So here we can see that we have the number of items, and some of these items, like if we look from the left, more than 50 items were delivered with lead time 1 day. Then around 15 items were delivered with lead time 3 days. Then around 40 items were delivered with lead time 6 days, and so on and so forth. The lead time is the moment from the commitment, from the first commitment point to the first unbounded queue, which in this case is the testing. This is the definition for the Kanban system, but of course, you may see the beginning and the end of your process in a different places. So it's really for you to decide and to create a proper policies around the lead time, when it starts and when it ends. And what lead time do you measure? Is it the system lead time, or is it customer lead time, or maybe you measure smaller cycle times within? But using this example, the lead time starts with the replenishment, it ends with the testing with work in progress limit 3. And what we can read from this lead time, that it has the mean of 6 days and SL expectation of 10 days with 85% on time, which means that we say with the certainty of 85%, we'll deliver these items in 10 days or less. 85% is 6 out of 7 cases. So of course, if you are a surgeon and you save people's life, then 6 out of 7 cases probably is not the best result. But if you are a developer, if you are a marketer, if you are doing your analysis work, then if you are on time in 6 out of 7 cases, this is rather good result. You can also use the other percentiles, like this 98th percentile, which we normally use for establishing whether we have thin or fat tail distribution. But about it, you could hear more from David in dependency management webinar. And now how it looked for us. So this is the example from the class, and now example from the real life and the discussion that we had around the commitment point. So this is how our lead time distribution looked before the blockers release. So you can see that it didn't look at all. There was actually no information that we could take out of this distribution except for that we have no idea what we are doing. Our lead time was between 40 and 270 days. I don't want to even say that we were unpredictable. There was no single percent of predictability in this process. We had no idea what we are doing. So this is how it started. And what was the benefit for us that from the day one, we really started to collect data. Although at some point of time, it looked like it makes no sense to collect this data, we continued to do it. And it really paid off because after the 7 months, when we were able to remove all of these blockers and finally start delivering, this is how our lead time started to look. So delivery now was between 25 and 145 days, still rather unpredictable, still fat tail distribution, but at least this histogram started to give us a story. So this is 4 months after the blockers release. So it wasn't 4 months after the beginning of the project, of course. So what we started to observe, not only from the data, but also from the feedback from the customers, from our actually colleagues from the finance department, was that, guys, it's really cool what you deliver, but it has a lot of bugs and there are some defects, and actually you deliver something what we didn't want to. So we used this feedback and we used the data to realize that, first of all, there is something wrong with this picture. And to those of you who are more into the topic of lead time distribution and reading these histograms, or maybe you just attended the class, or maybe you are just very interested in it, you can see that there are still few peaks in this histogram. And this is one of the signs that there may be, that this may be the multimodal data. So there is not one mode in this picture, but a few modes. So what we started to do, we started to look a bit deeper in this data and analyzing what we really see here. And except for this new build, because we just prepared one lead time distribution for everything, yeah, and we thought that this is the new build. And we realized that except for new build, we have actually more work item types. And so we discovered two new work item types. The first one was change request. So every time we deliver something to our colleagues, they reviewed it and they gave us the feedback whether it's something what they expected to see or not. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we received a lot of feedback that we need to change something in the work that we have already delivered. These change requests were failure demands, and we really didn't like it because it disturbed our process. But yeah, it happened and we had to solve it. So this was the second, except for the new build, it was the second work item type, which was change request. So we took all of these work items from this picture and we labeled them separately, that this is change request. And we started to prepare lead time distribution for this change request separately. And now you can see that this starts to look a bit more like the expected lead time distribution. Still with some outliers at 90, 100 days, but at least we knew what we are looking at and we could start addressing these outliers to trim the tail. The second work item type, defects, our favorite defects. So this is the lead time distribution for defects. And I wanted to show it to you because this shows that your work doesn't end when you figure out what work item types you have. Because, okay, we have defects here, but again, this is multimodal data. So again, we have two peaks in this picture. And why? It was much easier to explain, and it really refers to what I told you before. So we had our delivery cycle. Every second Saturday, we had our own delivery window. And if we were able to solve and address the defect within 2 weeks, so imagine we have Saturday. On Saturday, we have deployment. Then on Monday, a business starts using the reports that we have prepared. And for some of this report, they give us feedback that there is a defect. So we have now more or less 10 days because the next deployment had to be approved 3 days before deployment. So we had 1 full week and half of the next week to solve it and to test it. And if we're able to solve the defects and to test them and prove that it's working, we could include the resolution in the next delivery window, which was in the next weeks. If we were not able to do it, then this defect had to wait another 2 weeks for the next delivery window. So these two modes that you can see here, the first 5 and 10 days is like the delivery within the first delivery window between 2 Saturdays. And if we're not able to do it, then these items had a longer lead time between 20 and 30 to 40 days. So this is how you use the lead time to understand your process. And now how it comes to the deferred commitment and to two-phase commitment. So when we talk about the replenishment meeting and we have this, immortal question, okay, when it will be done, you don't say to your clients, you don't say to your customers, you don't say to your stakeholders, it will be done when it's ready. You just say that based on the data we have and the work items information we have, we see that this item that we just pulled from upstream system to our replenishment queue and to our delivery queue, we see that, say, this is change request. Our delivery date for our lead time for change requests is around 40 days. Just looking for this at this image, 85% of certainty that we'll deliver it within 40 days. Yeah. Looking at defects, okay, we see that this is the defect. So we have 70% of certainty that we'll deliver this item within the next delivery cycle, which is 2 weeks. If not, we'll deliver it in the next delivery cycle within the following 2 weeks, so within the 4 weeks. And this is the information that you deliver to your stakeholders. So you don't give them the precise date of delivery. You use lead time to tell them when they can expect the delivery and what is the percentage of certainty in delivery, and also what is this the level of uncertainty. So the item can always be late. But then if you see that, say, you deliver this defect within 14 days, you see that there is day number 9, 10th, and you still didn't start testing on it, then you can use the classes of service, and maybe you need to change the class of service for this item from fixed date, for example, to expedite. If this is very, very important and you need to deliver it by the certain date because of any circumstances, then you can change the class of service and you can say reallocate the capacity to focus on this particular item. So this is how you use these elements of first understanding what is your process, very basic element of any Kanban system, then having two-phase commitment points, two-phase process and two commitment points in your process. So you have first and second commitment point. Then you use your lead time data to plan and to communicate with your stakeholders. And then finally, you can use classes of service to be able to apply the correct class of service and to expedite some work if this is the critical work and you have to deliver it. What did it mean for our process? That increased the level of trust, because previously we had this Gantt chart, but we didn't deliver, and really no one trusted us. Although we said that yes, we'll deliver it, no one believed that we'll really do it. Then we had confidence in our process, and this confidence helped us to experiment and helped us to evolve. The experiments that we did were mostly related to engaging the business in working on this product and delivering this product, and expanding and improving our upstream system. And then the whole process and the whole delivery started to be more stable and more predictable. When we started to base on our data, when we started to base on this two-phase commitment, there was a very regular cadence introduced into this process. And if anyone came to us and asked the question, okay, when it will be done, we had very precise data to deliver the answer. Instead of the traditional closure, and I would like to show you, at the beginning, I have shown you the picture of Snoopy, who says that actually we live every day, we die only once. So I would like, I still have this picture. It's on my wall. I'm right now looking at it right here in front of me. So although this project ended for me almost 2 years ago, and it's more than 3 years ago when it started, I still use the same principles. I still use the same practices, working with the other projects, working with the other people. And I use it because it proved working to me. I hope I will also be able to improve others people's life. This is just part of the knowledge that we share with you during our KMP classes. So if you would like to attend our class and get a discount, you can use this discount code, Be Predictable. And with this, I would like to thank you very much for your attention. And I think that we can move to the Q&A session.
Okay, thank you, Anya. So if you have any questions, please post them in the Q&A box at the bottom bar, and I'll go ahead and get started reading some out. So the first one, is the commitment point always a queue state? Could crossing to the first in progress state be a valid commitment point?
It really depends if you start working on it immediately, because if you pull your item from upstream system during replenishment and the same day you start working on it, then it doesn't have to go into the queue. It also depends on how you deal with your replenishment meetings, because you may have really different situations in terms of replenishment. Actually, coming back to this example, we didn't have replenishment meeting at all because we were able to, and we could make this decision by ourselves. So I was kind of a product owner in this process. So I could make this decision. Okay, we start working on it, and we moved this item to design process. And we didn't have to have any stakeholders, any managers on the replenishment meeting, because we just made this decision like almost every day. Sometimes you are not able to do it. Sometimes you need to keep a separate meeting. You need to have this separate feedback loop of replenishment. And in this situation, you can again have two scenarios. One is that all of you meet all together in one meeting or Zoom meeting, and you have this physical or virtual handshake when you say that, yes, this is the work that we want you to deliver. Yes, this is the work that we'll deliver. And it all happens in the one meeting. Yeah. So this is what we call the synchronous commitment. You may also have something what's called asynchronous commitment. And then you really need this queue stage, because what's asynchronous commitment? You have your upstream system on one hand, when where your customers or your business commits to work that should be delivered by you. So they commit that this is the work they want you to deliver. But the commitment on your side doesn't happen the same moment. So you have the queue of committed of the items committed by the customer, and then you pull from this queue whenever you have available capacity on delivery side. And when you pull this item, this is the commitment that you start work on it and that you deliver this work. So when you have asynchronous commitment that you don't have a chance to meet, see it, and virtually or physically, and shake hand and say yes, this is it, then this queue is rather required, because otherwise that would be just a push system.
Okay, thank you. The next question, was there a tool that you used to generate the lead time distributions, or did you accomplish that manually?
Yes, this tool was Excel file. Yeah, it was just Excel. So we used Jira because we did, and we just took data from it, and then in Excel I created the histograms, and that's it. There was no big story behind it, but there are tools in the market that help you to do it, or that will just do it for you.
Okay. And what was the time invested in getting, organizing, and analyzing that data? Federico says, I had the impression that it was necessary to invest time to collect and organize the data before starting the analysis and getting the outcomes. Is that correct?
Yes, because first of all, collecting this data took time. Yeah? To generate some data point, we had to deliver something. So I told you at the beginning it was 7 months. So for 7 months, we just had the information about when we started, and the time is that clock is ticking. Yeah, and so we have no done. So to generate data about lead time, you have to have start date and end date. Otherwise, you just can have huge CFD. So yes, it took time, first of all, to deliver something and to generate some data points. Just side comment, because sometimes people ask how many data points we need to have to be able to see any kind of information or to get any kind of information. We normally say that between 11 and 30 data points. From my experience, my perspective, 15 to 20 data points start to give you some information. When you have 11 data points and your process has a lot of variation, then you just can observe something that I showed you on the first histogram, that you just have different items here and there, and actually no valuable information in it. So yes, first of all, it took time to generate these data points, which basically means to deliver something, to end some work. Then if you track it in any kind of electronic system, you just have this data, you need to generate them. Otherwise, if you track them on the whiteboard, you need to collect this information elsewhere. And then, doing it in Excel file, it really depends how many work items you have. When I generated the lead times recently for 3 teams, and each of them had around 6 to 7 different work item types. So it was 3 times, so around 20 histograms. It took me around 1.5 hours to do it. Right now, I just created a macro, and so I run the macro, so it's much easier. If you have electronic applications tools that do these histograms for you, then it's just it's done automatically, no time investment. But then you need to invest some time to analyze this data. And to analyze this data, you need to know your process, because again, sharing the coach experience, I can generate the lead time distribution for anyone who provides me data, but I don't understand what's behind. And you need to know your process, you need to know your work items to be able to say what's in the median, what's in the tail, and why we have these outliers in the tail, why they are outliers. So working with the process, you know the story behind these items, and you can then decide. Now it's another analysis, another decision. So is it common cause variation? Is it special cause variation? And how you approach these items in detail. So yes, so technically it doesn't take a lot of time to generate it. then it requires some time to analyze it. But again, if you are in this process, you know this process, you just look at these items and you know very quickly what happened there.
Okay, thanks. So you mentioned 2-week release cycles. This question is, how was this decided? Have you experienced shorter, longer release cycles? Which works
No.
better?
Okay, in this particular case, it was decided by the organization. Yeah, so there was a huge IT department with many projects. So and each change required a lot of approvals, you know, going through a lot of change advisory boards, this kind of meetings that, you know, a lot of very highly paid people came. So we just couldn't do deployment on demand. We just couldn't. This is how the process was designed, and it was high above us. So we had to adjust to this calendar. And as I said, it was decided, no discussion. On the other hand, you know, is it delivery on demand is probably desirable, but it doesn't only depend on you. When delivering, you also need to think about your client, because although you might deliver every day or you might deliver every hour or deploy every hour, and you are super fast and happy that you deploy every hour, maybe your client is not ready to accept this everyday delivery. Maybe your client needs to make an investment in the infrastructure on their side. And if you do the changes every day, then it costs them a lot. So doing not only actually both doing replenishment and doing deployment, you need to consider both the arrival rate of the information. So say you discover new information, you do the new analysis every second week. So it makes sense to do replenishment meeting maybe every second week. But if the arrival rate of information is lower, then you meet and you have nothing to talk about. So maybe it's worth to make this cadence not that frequent. On the other hand, maybe the arrival rate of the information is much quicker, like it was for us. So as I said, we did replenishment every day, sometimes every second day, but at least 3 times in a week. On the other hand, our delivery frequency was much slower. You may also have situation that you can deliver every day, you can deliver once per week, and this is also fine. So there is no, like silver bullet answer in this case. It really depends. I'm sorry to say that, but it really depends on your environment. Making this decision or thinking about your organization and your process, think about, first of all, the arrival rate of the information, and second of all, the cost, the transaction and coordination cost. So how much does it cost you to do the replenishment meeting? How much does it cost you to do the deployments? Do you need to involve a lot of people? Do you need to make any infrastructure changes? This kind of question that involve cost and information.
Okay. Next question. In real life, there are other factors affecting the delivery date, including resources, incoming requests, etc., which makes the prediction not that predictable. May I ask if there are any tips to cater this situation and have good communication with stakeholders?
I think that here we go into the area of dependency management, because at least this is what I hear from this question. I partially answered it a second ago. So yes, as you said, when new information come, what resources are available, what is our capacity, what is our capability in terms of delivery, what are the relations with the other groups in our company. Say we agreed that we do delivery in the next 2 weeks. There were some delays, for example, on our side. We missed the delivery. and the infrastructure team that we agreed this delivery date, they are already involved in something else, yeah, and they don't have time for us, and they don't have capacity for us any longer. So now we need to restart this, planning machine. So I would like to refer you back to the webinar where David talked about dependency management. And we also have dependency management poster. I think it was available this week on School of Management LinkedIn. So there is a whole list of tips and tricks for dependency management and how you can help yourself with that. Because this is a huge topic.
I'll send the link in a chat where you can find all of our past webinars to take a look at them.
Thanks.
Okay, Anya, could you tell us more about multimodal data and how we can manage it effectively to preserve the predictability of our systems?
So as I mentioned, the multimodal data is like the red flag that probably you have multiple work items, or maybe you deliver with different frequency, which also sometimes refers to the multiple work items. So if you see multimodal data, it's really worth to look a bit deeper into it. Are your work items within the set of data homogeneous? So like I had at the beginning new builds and we did only new builds. But when we started to deliver, we realized that we have change requests and defects. And change requests and defects are different work item types. And in our particular case, we had to treat them differently. They not only were different work item types from the perspective of the clients, but they were also different in terms of urgency. So of course, when we had the defect that affected the production, then we had to solve it as soon as possible, like immediately. And the change requests, they were, so-so. So sometimes we had to solve them immediately if they affected the current production cycle. But this particular team worked in annual and semi-annual cycles. So sometimes when they started to use the report that we produced, the next time they were going to use it was the next year. So this change request had very, very low priority and we could start working on it a bit later. But of course, this requires understanding not only the product and the application that we use, but also the business and the product on the business side. Also, we use the business to help us to determine these priorities. So if you have multimodal data, first look what you have inside. And again, for this, you just need to know your process. Or if you generate this data for someone else, ask this someone else for what's in here. And, even if you have like a lot of data, like recently we analyzed around 1,000 data points, what people who helped me analyze it, what we focused on were the outliers. So why it makes our process so unpredictable? So when analyzing the lead time data, they looked at the outliers and started from them to decide what we can do about them, what we can do to avoid them, to make this process more predictable. And if you do the analysis of the multimodal data for the first time, you just probably need the quick look through the data points and understanding whether all of them are homogeneous, whether all of them are the same or not. If they are not the same, then label them and separate the lead time distributions, and then check whether they become the single model data. If not, what happens? Yeah. So like I showed you the example of defects, all of them were defects, but due to the delivery cycle, there were still two modes. But it didn't make sense to look for more detailed analysis in terms of it because we just knew what happens.
Okay. In your case study, were the stakeholders satisfied with the answer milestone X is ready at Y with a probability of 60%?
No, I didn't give them this kind of answer. I just quickly figured it out for the sake of this webinar. No, what I showed you in terms of the lead times, they were like mid-project lead times. And at the end of closing to the end of this project and building the new reports, because we had the project, we created few reports in this project, and then it moved to so-called business as usual. So right now, per my best knowledge, when I talked to them recently, they are still building these products just by themselves. So being in the middle of the project, we were just establishing the new process, so moving from the Gantt charts to different type of communication. And what were our clients satisfied about was that we were more predictable. And actually, coming back to the title of this webinar, at the beginning, everyone expected from us that we'll save the world within 3 months, yeah. And after 3 months, everything will be beautiful, everything is going to work, and they don't need to spend these hours on manual work anymore. When we experience these initial problems, then having every second week having discussion with all of the stakeholders, but in the meantime, of course, having discussion with the business, we knew what's the situation, and that fast shouldn't be our goal, that we prefer to be predictable than being fast. So rather than saying, yes, I will deliver it in 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks after, yes, we'll deliver it in the next 2 weeks, and 2 weeks after, yes, we'll deliver it. We just said that, guys, this is our lead time. This is our variation. Right now, we see that it takes us between 40 and 120 days, which is between 1 month and 4 months. We need to analyze why it takes so much time for some of the reports, and we did. And again, we just analyzed the outliers, trying to avoid situations which made them outliers. And in the course of time, we're able to make this delivery thin tail. So the lead time was thin tail distribution. So we're able to say that for new builds, it takes us 3 months to deliver this new build. For change requests, it takes us up to 30 days from the moment when we start to the moment when we deliver, of course. And for defects, again, depending on the urgency of the defect and delivery cycle, it may take us up to 2 weeks or up to 4 weeks to solve the defect. And this is something what our stakeholders were satisfied with, especially that we started to deliver in these 2 weeks cadences. So they had this delivery very predictable. So they knew that every 2 weeks they are going to receive something. And if there was a situation that we had, because we knew this production cycle, we knew that in the next 3 months they are going to need one of the reports, and it would be nice to have it automated. Then having this information that, okay, it takes us up to 3 months to work on new report, we need to start working on it right now and not delay it. If we delayed it, then we had to maybe not expedite, but improve the speed of delivery, refocusing some of our capacity. But having this info about the lead time and having this delivery cycle, having to face commitment, it really solved the case of the problem of planning and communication.
Okay, I think we have time for maybe one more question.
Mm-hmm.
So how deep should you go with defining the work item types? And what was asked is, within change requests and bugs, there might be several different types related to the same service.
I'm just very, very heavily trying to avoid question. It depends. If you see the situation, oh, I will give the example actually right now. We have one work item type, which has a very general name. Let's call it task. And this is the work item type that we are able to see in the tracking systems. And based on it, we generate the lead time distribution. And I open the lead time distribution for this task, and I see, okay, multimodal data. But this multimodal data may have different costs because it looks like task, yeah, work item type, which is defined, which is labeled. So then I start talking to people who work on it, and what we realized together, that actually this task is like the category in every survey. You have the category other, yeah. So if you don't know what to do with an item, we just put it to the other. So if they don't know what to do with this item, they just put it into task. So yes, it may happen that within one work item type, you have just kind of a bucket for everything, but it's mostly related to inefficiency in the process. So it's rather easy to fix by just separating a few different work item types or just classifying them in a different way. If you have one work item type, like the change request, I'm just trying to figure out any situation when you can have multimodal situations still for this one work item type. Maybe it's related again to the urgency, how you treat this change request and how you look at the lead time distribution. But it's always the question of balancing the cost and the benefits. If you have the work item type, you see the lead time distribution, and you are able to make a decision based on this lead time distribution and this work item type you have, and this decision is based on data, and you are trustworthy in this decision, then I wouldn't go too deep in separating out change request type 1, 2, 3, and 4, because it can blur your data, it can blur your picture. If on the other hand, you see that you have this change request work item type, but still you don't understand why this distribution looks this way, why you have different, very different modes in this picture, then I would go deeper and trying to understand what it really is.
Okay, thank you. So we're out of time for today, but we really want to get all of your questions answered. So if you had a question that we didn't get to today, make sure to email it to support@dja.com or email Anya or I, and we'll get back to you with an answer. So thank you, Anya, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.